Let's not beat around the bush. So far in 2025, it has been a very mixed bag for movies. Don't get me wrong, I've loved Sinners, Mickey 17, Black Bag, Warfare. There has been some good stuff, but right now it's a tiny bit bleak.
Chicken jockey!
Luckily though, TV has been knocking it out of the park. Dramas, comedies, thrillers, animated series, you name it, and TV is kind of killing it right now. And we're only 4 months into the year. But because there's been so much good stuff, I feel like this is a good time to talk about my favorite TV shows of 2025 so far. First things first, hi, I'm Kiki, welcome back. And if you're new here, nice to have you. Drop a like, subscribe, and comment what you're watching this year. What are you enjoying? What are you let down by? We're gonna cover a lot of stuff in this video. I also do want to warn you, spoilers. Most of these shows that I'm really going to talk about wrapped up weeks ago, so I think it's fair game. And if you don't want to hear any spoilers, just use the little scrolling preview thing at the bottom and go to the next show. But okay, I got my notes. My dog is snoring on my bed right beside me. I have 8-ish shows that I'm really going to jump into, so let's do this. Up first, I just quickly want to go through a few quick fire shows that are still on right now and I'm watching week to week. Starting with Hacks. This show has won awards every single year, and I've kept telling myself, oh, that looks really good, I should definitely watch it, and yet I never have. Well, 3 years later, I finally binged it just in time to catch season 4 week to week, and I'm so happy I did because it's absolutely hilarious. Jean Smart and Hannah Einbinder have some of the best comedic chemistry that I can remember over the last few years, as well as Jimmy and Kayla, who are just such a dynamic duo and say some of the weirdest stuff. Hacks is also just a really smart show. Like, they have an episode on cancel culture that I think any comedian that says, oh, you can't joke about things anymore, should have to watch this episode. I'd highly recommend it, not just that episode, but the entire show, because it's just brilliant in general. Next is The Studio, or as some people call it, Inside Baseball for Hollywood people. I'm seriously obsessed with this show. I love everything about it. The energy, the directing, the performances. It's just so in your face and speaks about how weird Hollywood is, like episode 1 with the Kool-Aid movie. It also has like crazy Curb Your Enthusiasm level cameos that really just make it so much fun to watch every episode. I can't wait to see how it wraps up, and I honestly hope we get more seasons. Next up is The Rehearsal, and as a Canadian, I think Nathan Fielder should just be allowed to do whatever he wants. HBO should give him an infinite budget because he's single-handedly going to save the aviation industry. The Last of Us. It's been a really cheery first 2 episodes, hasn't it? I'm doing weekly recaps on my socials, so if you want to hear my thoughts on the first 2 episodes, go check it out there. It's a lot of fun. I thought they handled Joel's death super well, and it was only in episode 2, and I'm so excited to see where it goes from here. But I think that's it for the quickfire shows of what I'm watching right now. Andor actually starts tonight when I'm filming this, so I'll give you 2 possible reactions that I might have to the first 3 episodes. Wow, season 2 of Andor, they did it again. Ugh, season 2 of Andor, they blew it. But alright, I'm going to jump into the 2025 shows that are fully finished and I've watched through, starting with a show that I actually covered on the podcast a few weeks ago, Severance Season 2. I want to start the Severance section by saying to the OG Day 1 Severance fans, I am so sorry. You had to wait like 3 years for the show to come back for season 2, and then when it does, it becomes the most popular thing in the world. You must feel extremely vindicated, but so mad that it's the most popular thing. This season was so much fun. It really felt like a step up in all aspects. Acting, writing, directing especially. Like Jessica Lee Gagne doing her episode Chikai Bardo was one of the craziest things I've seen, and it was her directorial debut. Shout out our French-Canadian queen. As for the story itself, I appreciate the writers are just advancing the world every season. Even week to week, there were huge leaps. Other shows would spend like 5 seasons just focusing on what the numbers on their computers mean, but Severance just keeps letting us in and evolving the story. I hope it's not another 3 years until we get season 3, because I had so much fun watching this every week. I loved it, and Lumen can devour feculence. If you do want to hear a longer review of Severance Season 2, go check out my podcast episode on it. Okay, let's talk about Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. The first trailer for this show left such a bad taste in my mouth. The screechy voice acting and the just strange animation that was like rotoscope to the max. And on top of that, the voice actor for Peter, Hudson Thames or whatever his name is, said some really strange stuff like 2 days before the show came out. So my excitement for its release was pretty low. But after the first 20 minutes of episode 1, I was shocked. No, Peter Peter's voice never grew on me, but the animation did, and the writing really blew me away. I know we've seen it before, and this show's not even really connected to the MCU, but it was fun to see this version of Spidey's origin, and they really did some funky stuff that we'll never see in live action probably. They really did pack in as much cool stuff as they could without making it feel bloated. I mean, Oscorp, Tombstone, Doc Ock, Scorpion, Doctor Strange, different costumes and gadgets, even Daredevil, like, oh my god. Every episode made me say, wow, I didn't think we would get that, but it was really cool. And like all good things Spider-Man, it really maintained the dramatic and emotional elements. It wasn't just action figures being slapped together in cartoon world. Peter's friendship with Nico was so well written. I was pretty heartbroken by Lonnie joining the gang to save his brother and eventually becoming Tombstone. Hell, the writing was even so good they pulled off Richard Parker being alive. I really hope Marvel does more shows like this. I was a big fan of X-Men 97, and I would say this was just as good. So if you're an MCU fan or even just a Spider-Man fan and you haven't checked it out, I would really recommend it. And while we're on the topic of animated superhero shows, let's talk about Invincible Season 3. I thought it was a major step up from last season. Season 2 is giving me Stockholm Syndrome or something like that. I think it was good, but it was just that mid-season break made me not care or really remember what was going on. And there's part of me that feels really bad for everyone working on the show because season 1 was spectacular and had some of the best animation I've seen, but they essentially abandoned that animation style for the sake of a tighter schedule. So it's a double-edged sword. We get new seasons, but they don't look as good. Regardless, writing-wise, I think season 3 was really strong. Every dynamic Mark has is so well written and fleshed out. Mark and Cecil, Mark and Eve, Mark and his mom, Mark and Oliver, but even Mark and himself. All of season 2 and a lot of this season, he's scared of who he'll become because he doesn't want to be like his dad. But now with Oliver around and getting his powers, he pretty much needs to be Nolan. Oliver's going through what Mark went through in season 1, but at double the speed and way younger. The finale, in my opinion, was especially exceptional. Oliver just wanting to help his older brother but getting beat down was so terrifying. It felt like the big battle with Conquest had actual stakes, and they only got higher as Eve got injured. But her getting rid of the mental blocks on her powers was such a fun twist, and I thought it was a really powerful moment. There was a lot of really great different moments in the finale. Rex's funeral was really sad but kind of heartwarming and showed how complicated some of the relationships are. So despite a lot of people complaining that the animation in season 3 was bad, I think it was a really strong installment and I cannot wait for next season. Now let's hop into some prime adult melodrama. The White Lotus season 3.
Piper, no!
It's kind of wild how if this were the first season of another show, it would probably win every award. But season 1 and 2 of The White Lotus were so good that this one felt like a step down.
No!
Here are my big issues with season 3 of The White Lotus. Rick's entire storyline was so messy and felt poorly planned. I think the writers knew how they wanted things to end for him and Chelsea, but chose the strangest path to that end. Chelsea was so well written from the first to the last episode, but almost everything with Rick really made me scratch my head. Why wouldn't his father just tell him, I'm your dad and I'm alive? Why would they ambush his place in Bangkok, then immediately go back to the resort where you know he's probably going to show up? But my other really big issue with the show was Timothy Ratliff.
No!
One of the most exciting characters in the first 3 episodes, but then almost nothing happens with him until the end. The gun thing was kind of fun, but otherwise he's just popping pills and mumbling throughout every episode. I feel like there was so much more stuff that could have happened. And honestly, there probably was, because we know they do like to cut stuff out of the White Lotus. This season especially, they cut out the Piper and Zion romance, which looking back on the finale, look at Piper in that episode. The morning that they find Lachlan, she has the poofy hair and she looks like $1,000,000. She has this kind of glow that really is explained by what happened the night before. But some stuff I really did like. Guy Talk and Mook, I don't understand everyone's complaints online about them. I loved their dynamic and what it had to say about capitalism, ambition, and spirituality in general. You know, Mook, people were like, oh, she's so boring and she clearly just wants money. I don't think that's the case. I think Mook is extremely ambitious, but she's been trained in this capitalist thinking, where success in her mind comes from money and ambition and drive and having some high role in a company. Whereas Guy Talk's version of success is being true to oneself and being a good Buddhist.
Boo! Nudism.
I don't think he's unambitious, and that's kind of the point. And he has a sad ending because he essentially kills two people, sells his soul, and has this higher job. Sure, he ends up with Mook, but is he really happy? I really enjoyed season 3. I think there were a lot of Emmy-worthy moments, like Carrie Coon specifically. It's also hands down my favorite ensemble of the series, even if we didn't have Jennifer Coolidge, who I think was severely missed. But as a fan of the first 3 seasons of Sex Education, I'm so happy for Amy Lou Wood. It's weird to say, but if I had to rank the 3 seasons, this one would probably be at the bottom.
No.
Maybe because we don't have Jennifer Coolidge, maybe because we don't have a crazy hotel manager running everywhere. Then I'd go season 1 in second place, and season 2, the Italian season, of course, is probably the best. That Italian season just made me sad and depressed when it ended, versus this season just kind of made me feel gross. I'll never forget Chloe snapping back at Saxon and saying we didn't force you to do anything. But overall, as a White Lotus fan, I wasn't that disappointed, and I thought it was still a really fun season. Now give us the ski resort season, Mike White. Alright, back to superheroes briefly with Daredevil Born Again. I was happily surprised. When the news came out that they were essentially rewriting the show and doing this huge creative overhaul, I was worried. I'm a big fan of season 1 and 2 of the Netflix series, and it's kind of wild that was like, what, 10 years ago? Season 3 I could never get through. I don't know what it was. Maybe I just really don't like John Bernthal as the Punisher. But look, Born Again was pretty decent. I knew they were gonna do this, but they handled the death of Foggy Nelson super well. But they also did some interesting stuff, like building up Kingpin and Vanessa sort of as rivals. And obviously Bullseye rocked. Side note, whatever happened to Elektra, because they should bring her back. She was always a lot of fun. But my final thought on Daredevil Born Again is Charlie Cox is one of the best superhero castings probably ever. He is seriously the perfect Matt Murdock and just brings so much interesting stuff to the role. If you were a fan of some of the Netflix superhero MCU stuff, but you haven't made the jump to Daredevil Born Again yet, I'd honestly recommend it. It was pretty good. But now we're gonna bring the mood down and talk about the Netflix limited series Adolescence. I watched all 4 episodes in one sitting late on a Friday night. I think I finished it at like 3:30 a.m. and I was totally shook. I'm not surprised the UK government is going to use it in schools for educational purposes because there is so much value to this piece of media. Not only for kids, but I think it's a really great chance for parents to understand toxic internet culture, not just incels, but crazy right-wing mansphere stuff. And maybe it's a good chance for parents to also understand what schools are like with technology, and after COVID especially. My brother and a lot of my best friends are teachers, and I feel like after COVID, kids have just kind of gotten insane. But most of all, of course, this show is a really good warning for young boys that have these dangerous and toxic thoughts. It's showing them that your actions not just have consequences for you, but you can ruin your family's life. You're not only ending the life of another person as well as your own future, but you're bringing your family and friends down with you. Needless to say, Stephen Graham absolutely fantastic as the dad, but I want to give a huge credit to Owen Cooper as Jamie. This was his breakout role, and my god, does he ever deliver. He's powerful, he's naive, but he's so unpredictable, and he's not even in 2 out of the 4 episodes. But I feel like I still took so much away from his performance. Adolescence is just such an important series that we need in the world right now, and I'm really happy a lot of people are embracing it. These discussions about the mansphere and incel culture are just super necessary, and we're at a tipping point. So if you haven't seen it, give Adolescence a chance. But alright, the final show I want to talk about, and apart from Severance, I would say I've really saved the best for last. The show I'm about to talk about is devastating, heartwarming, hilarious, educational, and I am of course talking about The Pit.
The Pit.
I hate needles, I hate watching surgeries in movies, I don't even do particularly well with gore. I also hate medical dramas in general, I've never been attracted to Grey's Anatomy, but The Pit had me glued to my screen, unable to look away. I watched them simulate a difficult birth, and I stood up and gave a standing ovation in my living room. I think The Pit is so refreshing and effective because it's so self-assured and knows what it wants to be. This is what network dramas were like 15 to 20 years ago. I grew up watching shows like 24, and The Pit Pitt made me feel like I was back in 2009. Streaming sort of changed everything. I mean, overnight really, TV shows now had to look like movies, they had to be written like extended movies, and needed to have prestige actors chewing scenery like it's their clip from the Oscars. And despite being a streaming show, The Pitt is interested in none of that. And I'm extremely grateful. The show looks like a network drama, and it's lit like a hospital. The cinematography is really nothing fancy, and they don't extend 2-hour storylines over 8 hours. But even then, the season takes place over 1 day, so things that happen in episode 1 are still very fresh by episode 15. It's almost like the Pitt writers knew what we've been missing with streaming. Week-to-week dramas where there's 1,000 storylines going on. And what's crazy to me is there are 15 episode story arcs like Dr. Robbie working on the death anniversary of Dr. Anderson that are just as sad or effective as a 20-minute story arc. Every element of The Pitt is firing on all cylinders and is just so razor sharp. They know you want the drama, the romance, the adrenaline. They don't waste time with these 45-second horizon shots that are establishing a gorgeous scene. No, show me someone getting rushed into the pit with a fork stuck in their nose. Show me Dr. Langdon and Santos beefing. Show me a grieving mother and son. It's jam-packed from the first scene to the very last. The Pitt has also been one of the most fun things to talk about with other fans online, because everyone takes away something different, and that all comes from the diversity of the cast and their characters. Not only do we see ourselves represented based on race, sexual orientation, or gender, but these people have such average problems like the rest of us. A man that has suffered loss and blames himself for it. A charge nurse that's finding it harder and harder to stay motivated for a job that's no longer really rewarding her. An intern struggling to toe the line between confidence and arrogance, all while her superiors simultaneously bash her and encourage her. Or even a simple third-year resident who's slowly realizing that she has no life outside of work. Everyone can watch The Pitt and find someone they relate to. It's not only an important show representation-wise, but I think it's showing so many important issues that we are suffering from, not just in the medical field, but society as a whole. Within the medical field, hospitals are understaffed, underpaid, and really just treated like businesses. Gloria Underwood, the hospital's chief medical officer, always putting pressure on Robbie and saying they might sell the hospital because of low satisfaction rates on surveys. They saved your life, it's not an Airbnb. And society-wise, I love how they deal with anti-maskers, anti-vaxxers, and all of these armchair experts. Langdon telling that woman that they're not going to wear masks during her surgery because she's so against them, and then she freaks out and says, "No, please, please do." One of my favorite moments in all of the series. And then you have the measles mom refusing a spinal tap. Like, oh my god, it's just so frustrating and real. Because really, how many internet doctors do you know in your real life who think just because they have Facebook, they're an expert on everything? The world is really giving into this mistrust of experts for some reason. People think I read it online, so therefore I'm a professional and can teach it myself.
You really think someone would do that? Just go on the internet and tell lies?
The Pitt also shows the different medical issues that ER doctors have to face on a regular basis. Whether it's racism in medicine, or physical and sexual abuse, abortion, or mental health issues, there's just so many different things that come through that door every day for them. And honestly, I was really shocked they included 2 episodes about a mass shooting. The Pittfest episodes were terrifying and heartbreaking, but I think it's important for a certain specific group of people to see and realize what happens in hospitals after these incidents happen. I could seriously rave about The Pitt all day, and maybe it's my new favorite show of 2025, with Severance in a close second, but I don't know, that's like picking a favorite child. But either way, The Pitt is like nothing I've ever experienced before. I literally had to be in a certain mental state to watch every episode, but I loved it, and Noah Wyle will win every single award next year, so go watch The Pitt.
The Pitt.
Oh man, now I want to rewatch The Pitt, but we're only getting into May, and it feels like TV has been particularly good to me this year. I've watched so much fun stuff that I've absolutely loved, and I didn't even mention Survivor in this. But anyway, it's nice that TV isn't so looked down on like it was maybe 30 years ago. Actors sort of float between the two mediums, and you can really get good storytelling in both. However, from a storytelling and maybe a delivery method point of view, I think we are seeing a slow revert back to the old ways. Dumping all of your episodes at once is just no longer a good way to do things. things, you don't get word of mouth or any real cultural impact from that. Squid Game was one of the biggest phenomenons for like 3 weeks, but season 2 came out this year and I feel like no one talked about it. So who knows, maybe Hollywood can get us back to week TV with longer episodes and more episodes in a season. And while we're at it, let's get longer theatrical runs for films. Maybe I'll do another one of these videos in the fall or something like that, because there's still so much good TV to come. But until then, if you've enjoyed my rambling, you can hear more of it on my weekly podcast, Watcher of All Things. It's my show where I talk movies, TV shows, and all things entertainment, with new episodes dropping every Monday. You can find it on all of your streaming platforms or right here on this wonderful YouTube channel. But as for now, hit like, subscribe, and the notification bell so you know when new podcasts or videos drop, and comment what you're watching down below, whether it's a 2025 show or not. But this was a lot of fun. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.
I didn't force him to you off.
What do you mean that never happened?